welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. My name is Allie, and I am joined as ever with...
Hello, everybody. My name is Sara Ash, and I'm here with the Women's Soccer Show.
But we have a show for you today.
Oh, yes. I have to start by saying, before we get into the show, I feel like I need to concede and make an apology. I got a lot of hate on Twitter this week, everybody. And from my fellow women's national team fans, if you can believe.
Not just on Twitter. Not just on Twitter.
No.
She got it in the group chat as well.
I got it everywhere. And I guess when you're wrong, you're really wrong. I can't talk about this without laughing because it's just so funny. In our previous episode, Allie and I had a discussion about the Ballon d'Or because it went to Alexia Putellas, and that transitioned, as it would, into a discussion about the 2019 Ballon d'Or, in which Allie said Megan Rapinoe only got it because of name recognition, and I said she was the best player on the best team. Look, I was super wrong about that. I got really caught up and defensive of Megan Rapinoe because I do actually think that she's better than people give her credit for, because I think that people only see her as like a political activist now, and that's like basically overshadowed that she was and has been such a key aspect of the women's national team. However, after considering it for a while, I really don't think she was the best player on the team. So I will say to those of you who called me out, thank you for keeping me honest. And I don't know, that was my first public apology. I feel pretty good about it.
Now Sarah's had a big old slice of humble pie. So we're going to start off with the FA Cup final that happened on Sunday. That was between Chelsea and Arsenal. Was it a great game? Was it a absolute stonker of a cup final? We shall see. Many have said that it's a good indicator of what's going to happen in the league based on what happened on Sunday.
I would agree with that, actually. I really would. I sincerely hope not, and I hope that Arsenal can continue to climb, but in just a high level, unfortunately, I do think that this is an indication that Chelsea is still just a notch above everybody and still a little bit out of reach from everybody else.
Yeah, so spoiler alert if you haven't seen the result already, but Chelsea beat Arsenal 3-0 in the cup final. To use the great football cliche, it was a game of two halves. The first half was really dull, in my opinion. It was quite boring and was not a great final did make.
And then the second half
was phenomenal, to be honest. And it pains me as a West Ham fan to praise Chelsea. But even though it was the same players, it was a different Chelsea side that came out in that second half.
Yeah, so let's get into it. The first half, frankly, we went into halftime 1-0. And my takeaway from the first half was, even though it wasn't a great game, Chelsea were destroying Arsenal. They had so many opportunities. They specifically Sam Kerr also had so many opportunities. Arsenal managed to come out of that half 1-0. And to me, especially as an Arsenal fan, I'm sitting there thinking this is the reset that they need to go in for a completely different second half, and we're going to see them really battle it out. That's not what we got here. Instead, what we got is Chelsea coming out stronger and Arsenal essentially crumbling. And you can even see in the highlights from just like the way Arsenal is carrying themselves, there is no energy there. They truly did look defeated in a cup final.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first half, Chelsea were gifted a goal, really, by a defensive mistake by Moy. It happens. She miskicked and it ended up going straight into the path of Fran Kirby, who did what Fran Kirby has been doing pretty much all season and slotted it home within the first 5 minutes. If it hadn't been for Zinsberger, Arsenal would have gone into that half 5-0 down easily. It's
true. Zinsberger came up really, really big for Arsenal, who have been a little bit shaky missing Leah Williamson, I will say. We should denote that missing strong leader, strong physical presence, strong tactical presence playing out of the back. She is missing from that back line, and that really, really showed against a top team like Chelsea, and Zinsberger had to come up big to keep them in the game.
The thing is, though, if you look at stats, right, Arsenal had the majority of possession. Arsenal had 65%, but they did nothing with it because they had only 9 shots on goal compared to Chelsea's 16, and none of them were on target. None of them. This is not the Arsenal we've been watching in the league week in, week out.
No, it really wasn't in almost any regard, Allie. Like, I think that that's a great point because tactically it wasn't, yes, Arsenal in the league keeps possession, but it's a direct type of possession. They're not going to sit back. It's not like a Spanish type football where you're going to see 20 something passes before you even see a shot. It's a possession, but it's a direct possession, and it's aimed at allowing their front three, who are really some of the strongest in the world, to play and to get shots on goal. And that was not coming through in this game. And, everything from that to what I just said of energy wise, this frankly, it kind of looked like Arsenal of last year.
Before we hit on the second half, I have a question for you. Do you think that he got his tactics wrong? Because I'm looking at that squad now, and you have left out from the starting lineup Jordan Nobbs. You have left off Nikita Paris. You have left off Caitlin Ford. You have left off Mana Ibuchi. Like, these are some of the greatest players in the world right now. Why are they only on your bench? Why did Jordan Nobbs not even get a kick of the ball? Your midfield is looking shaky at half time. Why have you not switched it up and brought on, frankly, one of the best midfielders at the moment in Jordan Nobbs? Why is all I can say. It's just like,
yeah, I think that is the key question here, and it's also the question, frankly, that's coming up online a lot. You see all these videos of Jordan Nobbs on the bench, and it looks like she's kind of emotional because she wasn't put into the game, and Jordan Nobbs hasn't been consistently used in this lineup all year. This isn't specific to this game. That's been all year. But absolutely, I mean, there's so many things to say about this. Tactically, at some point, if you're the head coach, you have to look at what's happening in the game, and you have to make adjustments based on energy levels, based on the fact that you're seeing your team, you have possession, but you don't have enough shots on goal. The fact that there were no tactical changes being made, and you are sitting there with Jordan Nobbs, Caitlin Ford, and Iwabuchi on the bench, 3 class midfielders, game changers. Caitlin Ford is a game changer. Iwabuchi is a game changer. Jordan Nobbs is a game changer. And that's exactly what Arsenal needed in this game. The fact that they were on the bench for all 90 minutes is a coaching error, in my opinion. If I were the head coach, I would have switched up the lineup so that we had a 4-3-3 to allow for a 3 center midfielder. I would take out my 2 number 6s. I'd put in either Iwabuchi and Nobbs, or I would put in Ford and Nobbs, and I would allow Miedema, Mead, and McCabe to just run up top while I had Little with my 2 subs in the midfield, and allow for that change and allow to breathe some air into your squad.
Yeah, 100%. And it just felt very lackluster. Like, you've only gone down 1-0. Like, you are Arsenal. You are a team that is beating teams 4-0, 5-0. Like, you can come back from this. You have got some players that have scored some cracking goals, but they just went in and their heads went down and their heads never came back up.
I was watching it and I was like, well, are you saving for something? Do they need to win the next Champions League game, for example? Are they essentially forfeiting their FA Cup for their Champions League? Because that's at least something that I could maybe understand. But they're not even in that position. In fact, Chelsea's the one that needs to win their next Champions League game. And Emma Hayes is still going full force. So something was wrong tactically and substitution-wise for Arsenal.
You just have to look at the Chelsea bench, but let's look at the starting lineup that Emma Hayes started off with. If this doesn't show her intent, nothing will. You have got, in your midfield alone, you have got Erin Cuthbert, Sophie Ingle, Leopolds and Wrighton, okay? Some of the greatest players. And she changed Erin Cuthbert. Erin Cuthbert was on Katie McCabe's back the entire game. Did not let McCabe get anywhere near anything. But that's not what Erin Cuthbert does. But Emma Hayes said, I'm trusting you. You are to shut Kate McCabe down. That is what you are to do. And she did it beautifully.
She did an absolutely stunning job. She had a fantastic game. Frankly, if Sam Kerr hadn't scored those couple goals and been the MVP, Erin Cuthbert really, really should have, because she was a huge part of Chelsea's win on defense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just things. So we come on to the second half. We've seen that Arsenal got their heads down. They're not really back in the game. And then who else but Samantha Kerr scoring 2 great goals. But the third goal is what I want to talk about. That chip over the keeper It was cheeky. It was beautiful. It was showing what Sam Kerr could do in her like prime.
Truly. I think that in her prime is such a great term for it, because we are watching Sam Kerr in her prime right now, which is just glorious to begin with, because the fact that we've been watching her and she's been this incredible and she hasn't been in her prime up until now, just wow. The announcer said it best. I'm not going to quote him directly because I don't have it in front of me, but he basically was like, that was a great, for the high standard of a Sam Kerr goal, that was absolutely outstanding. Emma Hayes was so funny in the press conference, and she was just saying when that goal got put away, she was like, I was just purring.
Tactically, Emma just got it right.
She got it right. And I'm going to give Sam Kerr some props, which I've given her before, and we all know I love her, but I'm going to assume that she's gotten a little bit of grief for how many goals she missed in the first half. And she did make up for it in the second half. But I'll say this about Sam Kerr. For as many goals as she misses, it doesn't entirely matter to me, because she's such a playmaker. She creates so many opportunities, whether it's for her, for Kirby, for anybody else. She's a creator. She creates opportunities. And so because of that, I don't really care how many she misses, because she creates more opportunities than goals she misses.
Now, obviously, this game caused the main comment all the time, which is Viv versus Sam. Because obviously the Chelsea fans are saying, look, well, what's your great Viv done now? You've got the Arsenal fans who are kicking off about some of the Chelsea's tactics. I believe I saw a comment about them buying the ref, which is just ludicrous. Sore losers, Arsenal, sore losers. But it is coming to like Viv versus Sam, and I don't want to get into that because they're both great players. But it does bring me on to where my next point is, which is, so Miedema did an interview just before the FA Cup, and it's got a lot of Arsenal fans worried, because she is not pinning her future down with the Gunners. She came out very clearly and said that I want to win the Champions League, and I've got 1 year left on my contract with Arsenal, and if I don't think we're going to get there, then I'm not opposed to moving on and finding a club. And I think this FA Cup performance is not going to reassure Arsenal fans that Viv is going to stay.
It's really not. And that's disappointing to hear, and also doesn't surprise me at all from multiple perspectives. First of all, objectively, you've got to understand that from her. She's dedicated a lot to this club, and they've gotten close and they've never quite gotten there. And I do feel like it started about halfway through last season, where you could kind of see her being a little despondent on the field and a little bit disinterested. And I think that's Arsenal fans should be worried, and more than that, the Arsenal club should be worried, because if Miedema goes, I think that it's going to be harder to bring people in, and a rebuilding might need to happen if that happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But we do have to give credit to Chelsea. They have completed the domestic quad in Charity Shield, League title, FA Cup title, Conti Cup title. So it's definitely a very special team.
It's a very special team, and I'll even go a step further. It's a special manager. And as much credit as Emma Hayes gets, it's still not enough. She is a once-in-a-lifetime manager who the players love. You can tell they absolutely adore her. They adore playing for her. They adore how hard she pushes them. You can see that this is a team that gets pushed to their wits' end, but in the best possible way, and they're all growing as players in just leaps and bounds under Emma Hayes. And she is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the best football manager in the women's game, club or country, right now.
Before we move on, I just have to give a shout out that if anybody wants a bit of a giggle and a bit of a laugh, there is a great video of Millie Bright getting absolutely beamed by the FA Cup.
If you haven't seen this, just pause the episode and go watch this right now, because it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, so she's been given it, she's vice captain, she's doing the FA Cup lift, and literally the lid flings off and it cracks her in the eyebrow.
But then she doesn't want to stop celebrating, so she's got one hand on the cup and she's got one hand on her eyebrow, and she's still jumping up and down, like screaming and celebrating. And you can imagine champagne getting in that cup probably doesn't feel very good, but she's still going for it. So she has a big cut on her forehead. She didn't get concussed from that, right? Like, she's okay. It's just the cut.
No, she's fine. She's fine. It's just literally...
The celebration injuries, everybody. The celebration injuries. Once when my teammate broke my nose, we were celebrating and my teammate broke my nose.
See, football is a dangerous sport and not just on the pitch.
Well, shall we go into Around the World, Around the World? Would you like to kick us off over in France?
The last time we covered Division 1 Feminine around the world, Lyon had just taken down PSG in a blinded 6-1 victory, and Paris FC was clinging to third, just 3 points behind PSG. Since then, PSG have won 2 consecutive games, 7-0 and 3-0 respectively. Lyon have won 2 games, both at 4-0, and Paris FC seem to have missed their opportunity to gain on PSG with just 1 victory and 1 draw. This leaves Lyon at the top of the table, PSG just 3 points behind, and Paris FC 5 points behind PSG. With Paris FC falling, we may see a race for the 3rd Champions League spot.
Over to the Champions League. Speaking of the Champions League, action kicks back off this week. Some games that we think will be fun to watch and want to highlight are Juventus versus Chelsea, which is happening today while you're listening to this episode on Wednesday. That's at 3 Eastern, 8 p.m. British time. This group has Juventus, Chelsea, and Wolfsburg, and it's all really tight. And Wolfsburg looks like they should take the victory, which means that it really does come down just to this game between Juventus and Chelsea, which will decide everything. It is a must win for both Juventus and Chelsea. And then over to Barcelona versus Arsenal. That's happening Thursday tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT. While both of these teams are expected to make it out based on where they're sitting in their table right now, we're excited for this rematch and to see how Arsenal can adjust from the previous loss and from this FA Cup loss.
Absolutely. So we're going back to my favourite league at the moment, which is the German league. This table is hot right now. The top 4 teams are all within 3 points of each other as we speak. The top 3 teams, which are Wolfsburg, Bayern and Hoffenheim, all took home victories, whilst Eintracht Frankfurt drew 3-3 in a wild game. 2 goals in the first 2 minutes, a red card in the 88th minute. This left Eintracht Frankfurt down in 4th, but still just 3 points away from the leaders, Wolfsburg.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
We had Tom on, who we've mentioned before. Tom was the person who commented to you when I first mentioned the term outside backs. Tom is wonderful. Shout out to you, Tom. I hope you're listening to this. We had him on to talk about soccer terminology, US versus UK vernacular, and we just made it a nice, fun little back and forth between us. So we're going to get into that now.
So now for a brand new segment on the podcast, we have got in the red corner, we have got the US of A, we have got Sarah, and in the blue corner, we have got the challenger, the guest, Mr. Tom from Since 71, who has commented on my use of the American lingo, so we're bringing them together. This segment, we're going to talk about US versus UK terminology. What is right? What is wrong? I'm going to start off by prefacing that Tom is probably right. So we have got a couple of terminologies that have been clashing between the two nations. So we're going to start off with outside backs versus left and right backs. Tom, you have a minute to make your case for left and right backs.
Oh, I didn't know there was time constraints. You've caught me. It's descriptive. Instead of being, instead of being a fullback, which is probably the better term to be more general, left back, right back, it tells you where the player is going to be. Outside back, outside of what? Outside of the ground, outside of the midfield, outside of the goal. That's not descriptive enough. I don't know. I'm not sure where that is. I did it in under a minute. There you go.
Yeah, it was you were complaining about having a minute and then you barely hit 30 seconds there, Tom.
Absolutely. So Sarah,
Okay, is
you
it my
have a
turn
minute.
here?
You have a minute to respond.
I am genuinely worried about keeping this to a minute. So I just want to say that I don't think anybody when they hear outside back is wondering if they mean outside of the stadium, outside of the locker room, the outside of the bench. I think it's pretty clear that it's on the outside of the back line. So in terms of being confused, I think that eliminates that. And then left back, right back. Look, these are professional players who do get switched around based on injuries, based on whether they're playing for club, for a country. They're not always going to be a left back, not always going to be a right back. When you're talking about a lineup, absolutely use left back, right back, because that's descriptive. But when you're simply talking about players and the positions that they play in general, for me to say Kelly O'Hara is a right back is absurd because she could play left back for club and right back for country or vice versa. And it shouldn't matter because she's a professional athlete who can use both sides, both feet adeptly. And it does not matter.
And that is
time. I did it in 60 seconds. I'm more proud of that than anything else.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the American this time. And this time we're bringing up PKs versus penalties. You have a minute. Go.
A penalty is a foul that gets called. A penalty kick is the kick that you take from the penalty that gets called. And the PK is the abbreviated version of it because we like to make everything seem like it's better and more cohesive and easier to use when it's not really. So whether you call it a penalty kick or a PK, doesn't matter. But the penalty is the foul that gets called and the ensuing kick that happens from it is the PK or the penalty kick.
Oh, another nice and brief one at 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Tom, your rebuttal, please, sir.
I don't think it needs to be denoted in that way. I don't think that you need to know what the penalty kick is because a free kick is a free kick. And it's not it's a foul then a free kick, but it wouldn't be the penalty and the penalty kick. It's just a penalty, a pen. They're taking the penalty as in they're accepting it as a gift for a chance to score. They're taking the penalty.
Oof, I wish I could say something because now you brought free kick into here and I got a little confused for a moment because I hadn't considered that.
Well, these both of you were very short. So if you want a rebuttal, Sarah, you got 30 seconds.
I'll take it if Tom thinks it's fair.
Of course, but I didn't get a rebuttal in the first one. I want to see the rules again.
I think you'll have a rebuttal to my rebuttal here. Or maybe this is just something we can work out together because now you brought in free kick and I kind of just need to work this through as I speak it out loud. So a penalty or a foul gets called outside of the box and you get a free kick, kind of unrelated to the terminology penalty or foul. A foul gets called inside the box or a penalty. I guess what I've come to here is that they're seemingly unrelated.
Yes, I just meant from a penalty kick to a free kick. It was just going on a theme of adding kick after the first word.
I see.
So I was trying to figure out. I was thinking about it earlier where one would go. But I mean, you guys used to take penalties from the halfway line, so would that be a free kick as well, in theory?
I guess my bigger question is why it annoys people from the UK that we do say PKs. That's my bigger question here. Why does it annoy people? Because I think that's a very overarching theme of people in the UK get annoyed when we say that.
I think it's because it's not different anywhere else in the world. And any kind of even like a different language version of football, it still comes across in as it is, you know, like, so that's why it's like and you guys are like, yeah, PK, and it's like,
you're saying we're the only country in the world that calls it a PK?
I reckon
we're gonna have to figure that out. That would be I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. We're one of the few that calls it soccer.
and that's from they shortened, I think, association football to ASOC, which became soccer, because it wasn't association. That's how we got it. I was looking into it today to be like slightly prepared for the
oh my god, thank you so much for doing that.
And this is what I read, but then I was also like, all these sites look bogus as hell, and so I'm using some American terminology to describe the to make sure that everyone gets
didn't know that. That's very interesting. I wonder if American football had been invented by that time, so they really were just, it hadn't been.
No, they were calling it association football, and then they changed it, I guess, and then I think it was because rugby football is rugby, but they call it rugby football. So a lot of places in the UK are rugby football clubs. And then that changed the rugby football club.
You've totally lost me. I feel like I should denote for anybody who's listening to this is all in good fun. There is no right or wrong. This is just fun to compare different cultures, like soccer, football cultures. I feel like I should say that because I think we're about to get a lot on Twitter from this. Sarah, you're such an idiot. Thank you so much for doing this, Tom. We're going to have you on as more like compile naturally as they come up over the episodes. We're going to have to compile a new list and then have you back on to further discuss that new list. And it can be like a recurring segment.
Anytime.
Lovely. All right. Thank you so much, Tom. We've made it to NWSL, but oh my goodness, we still have so much to go through. The trade deadline was last Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. All that means is that the trade doesn't have to be announced by then, but it had to go through the NWSL office and be cleared by then. This is ahead of the drafts, so there's even more movement to come. This is just the trade deadline. The drafts are happening on December 16th. That is the expansion draft. And December 18th is the college draft. And to make a distinction between these, the expansion draft is for the 2 incoming new teams that will begin playing in the league in 2022. So for Angel City in LA and San Diego Wave FC. So with the drafts, there were draft orders drawn in terms of like who picks first. First of all, we're going to have a whole special on the drafts, including how they work, both for the expansion draft and the college draft. We'll include how they work, previews of teams, and everything like that. That's not what we're going to get into now. I say this to say there was so much trading that we're going to have a whole new list of, who picks first and everything for these drafts. But truly, there was too much that happened for us to even list it all. So we're going to kind of go through in categories, I would say, Allie.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I like it. It helps make it sense in my brain.
So let's just kick it off. There were a lot of teams that were in action right before the trade deadline. Some teams were silent, but a lot of teams made a lot of trades. Which team really was the biggest player in these trades?
So I think, obviously, you have your 2 expansion teams, as we mentioned, with Angel City and San Diego, because obviously they've got to build up whole teams. But the surprising one for me was Chicago. Chicago basically decimated their own team.
Yeah, they really did. That's what caught my eye initially when all of this first surfaced. It stands to reason. Angel City and San Diego, the expansion teams, they don't really have a lot of players on their team right now, if any. So, of course, they're going to be active in the trade market. And yes, the majority of the trades were centered around these 2 teams. But I am curious if all of this would have happened with Chicago had everything about Rory Danes not come out.
No, I think it's very much that maybe players didn't want to stay, so therefore they were happy to, be drafted elsewhere and traded elsewhere. I think Chicago have got a lot of rebuilding to do, and it's just got to be a clean slate. So I don't think so, because they had such a good run and they were onto something great, and I think that has led to you just wouldn't dismantle it if all of this other stuff hadn't come out.
It's true, and while Chicago did really disassemble their team, Chicago did re-sign Tierna Davidson, Casey Kruger, Alyssa Nair, and Mal Pugh. So you could say that they essentially committed to this being their core instead of those who they traded away. So the big trade that really caught everybody's eye initially was Julie Ertz and Sarah Gordon went to LA. The trade was Julie Ertz and Sarah Gordon plus a 2022 and 2023 international slot went to LA. Chicago got for that 2022 expansion draft protection. Should I run through what that really means?
Yes, please. For the untrained British ear. Yes, please.
Of course. So in the NWSL, you are allowed a certain number of international spots, international players. So a few of those for Chicago were traded over to LA along with Ertz and Gordon. What Chicago got in return, what I mentioned, the expansion draft protection, how the expansion draft works is that the 2 new teams, LA and San Diego, get the chance to select a couple of players from each team in the league. When you get protection from that, this means that what Chicago did was basically pick their own destiny. They were saying, we're going to give you players instead of you taking players from us. So at this point now, because Chicago got expansion draft protection, LA cannot select any players from Chicago. We saw this tactic used actually by Chicago in last year's expansion draft when they traded away Savannah McCaskill and Naomi Osaka to Racing Louisville. And because of that, Racing Louisville could not select any players from Chicago.
Is it specific only to the team that they have traded that with? So, for example, can San Diego go after Chicago's players?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It is specific to only Angel City, which is kind of the key this year, because now if you want draft protection, you've got to make a deal with 2 teams, as opposed to last year, you just had to make a trade with Racing Louisville and then you were protected.
So the one that everyone is talking about is the fact that Crashland has gone to Gotham.
Yeah. Gotham FC, Crashland to Gotham FC. I think when we're talking about biggest trades, like what was, out of all of these, what was the biggest trade? I'm going to name a couple. Number one is Julie Ertz and Sarah Gordon, which we just talked about, from Chicago going to LA, because now you've got Kristen Press, Julie Ertz, and Sarah Gordon, and that's just the start for Angel City. The second big highlighted trade was Crashland to Gotham FC. So a few days prior to now, Caitlin Sheridan was traded to San Diego from Gotham FC for San Diego's expansion draft protection and allocation money. So what that means is that Gotham FC gave Sheridan away, and what they got in return was San Diego can no longer select a player from them in the expansion draft, plus they got some money. And then just recently, Crashland came to Gotham FC from Orlando. And what the Pride get from Gotham are a 2022 first-round pick. So that is the first-round pick in the college draft, and a 2023 third-round pick, plus allocation money. What this means is that Allie Krieger and Ashlyn Harris, essentially the value of them to Orlando Pride was a first-round pick out of college and a third-round pick out of college. And allocation money, but that was the value of them to Orlando Pride, which is interesting in itself. And then I'm going to say that the third big highlight trade that we have to touch on, because it's huge news, is Samantha Mewis went to Kansas City. North Carolina gave Sam Mewis to Kansas City, and in exchange got Kiki Pickett and the number 3 pick in the 2022 college draft. So not this year's, but next year's. What do you think of that trade? Who came out on top?
Easily Kansas City. Easily. Like, Samantha Mewis has been playing astonishingly well recently. She did so well at Manchester City, and then she's come back to North Carolina. Granted, it was a bit muted for the rest of this season.
And she's been dealing with injuries and hasn't been playing for a little bit.
Exactly. But if you're talking about national team, you're thinking Sam Mewis. You think she's just on such a trajectory right now. And basically, you have given away Sam Mewis.
I couldn't agree more. I think, in my opinion, this is the best trade that was made. I guess if you're North Carolina, it was the worst trade that was made, but this was the best trade that was made. Kansas City came out on top. I cannot believe, when I read this, I didn't think I was reading it correctly. I cannot believe they got her for Kiki Pickett and a number 3 overall pick next year. Not even this year, next year. And obviously, that's good for a team that's building for the future. But to value Sam Mewis like that, that's pretty incredible. And I'll say, keep your eyes out for Kansas City, because, oh my goodness, they've got a good thing going over there. I think it makes sense that Sam Mewis wants to go there. She's really outspoken about how culture drives a lot for her. And they've got a really, really good culture. They're building something special over there. And I think that they're one to keep an eye out for. So moving from best trade into worst trade, I've got 2 answers for this. What do you think is the worst trade that went down? I'm curious what you think, because I think my answer is going to shock some people.
Yeah, you say your answer, because drafts confuse me and I'm looking forward to getting the in-depth one. However, if my Twitter feed is right to believed, then Crashling going to Gotham is the greatest mistake that has ever happened.
That's what I was going to say. It's a huge mistake, and it pains me to say this for, oh my goodness, for so many reasons, because number one, I love Ashlyn Harris. I love Allie Krieger. I love them together. I love Crashland, and I love Gotham FC, and I simply don't understand why Gotham FC gave up the future Canadian starting goalkeeper, who is, in my opinion, one of the best in the entire league right now, gave her up for expansion draft protection. That's the first part of this that is a little perplexing, because within a draft, you are allowed to protect a certain number of players, right? So I don't remember how many spots that they were given, each team was given last year, but let's say each team is given 10 spots that they get to protect. And those protected players can't be drafted. So to trade her away for protection over the entire team, to me, what that speaks to is that they like the lineup they have as a whole, and they're building something bigger on the field with all of the pieces that they're putting together in the back, middle, and front line. But to give up a young, talented goalkeeper for Ashlyn Harris, who is one of the most talented goalkeepers in the league, but how long is she going to really last there? How many more years does she really have there? And frankly, same with Ellie Krieger. I think Krieger's got even fewer in her than Ashlyn Harris does.
Yeah, because it's like you said, like Sheridan is a young upstart goalkeeper that has had an absolute phenomenal season. And yeah, Harris is a proven goalkeeper. Yeah, Krieger's a proven defender. But it just doesn't make sense.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, you know that yesterday our News in 10 segment came out on our Patreon. Go check that out. That comes out now every Tuesday, as you know, so check that out. This was our second to last episode of 2021. Very sad.
It is very sad. I can't believe I've done half a season already.
I know, I can't believe that. This is episode 11. So stay tuned next week, everybody. We've got a huge finale. It's going to be really fun. And then we'll break for the holidays and come back when the WSL comes back.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week for our final episode. This has been the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.